Let's look at the Republican Party vis-a-vis America. The ideas of liberty, the ideas of individual rights, the idea of freedom. The Republican Party has completely lost its way. Not that it had a particular good way in the last 50 years, or since Reagan, let's say. But whatever way it had, it has lost it completely. Trump took it off the track and way away from America. He caused a massive drift away from the principles of America. There is nobody in the Republican Party talks about rights anymore, or the Constitution anymore, or limited government anymore, or the principle of, separation of powers. All Republicans care about today is attacking the left and not being the left. Now, maybe that's a winning strategy in the short run. It's not a governing strategy. It's not a strategy that is going to move us towards freedom. But maybe the Democrats are so bad, have so alienated the American people, that Republicans can win on a platform that says, we're not them. Maybe that works. I'm not enough of a political strategist to know. But when you look at this political party that refuses to examine, never mind take responsibility for what happened January 5th, that completely is groveling before Donald Trump on every issue, folding on him, even people who are critical of Trump, folding on him, and he's not even president. A political party with no soul, no ideas, no agenda. It turns out that to combat Biden's $2.2 trillion infrastructure program, which, as I talked about, not much, some infrastructure, a lot of just social spending. Republicans counted $400 billion of infrastructure, which still is way more. Where do you raise the money from? Biden countered with $1.7 trillion, and the last I heard is Republicans are going to counter with $1 trillion. So we haven't spent enough trillions, according to the Democratic Party and according to the Republican Party. In the challenge, in the discussion about minimum wages, two Republicans offered alternatives to the Democratic proposals for minimum wage. Not to set them at zero, but to set them at just lower numbers or different methodology to measure them. One by Mitt Romney, you'd expect a moderate or seemingly moderate Republican. And the other by, what's his name? Hawley, who is considered the future of conservatives. Democrats want to grow the state. Republicans say, yeah, we do too. A little slower and without raising taxes. That's the most important issue for Republicans of all. It's taxes. It's not liberty. It's not freedom. It's not limited government. It's all about taxes. All they care about. All they obsess about. So, the Republicans today, the most influential portion of the Republican Party, the ones who attract the intellectuals, the ones that write and write papers and are proposing solutions and are proposing ideas and are proposing legislation, they're all the national conservatives. They're all nationalists, statists, central planners, who want to expand the state in the name of American greatness. And yet, it's not about America. It's Tucker Carlson's America. Tucker Carlson's America is the America with beautiful scenery and strong religion. It's a Republican Party more dedicated to the fight against abortion than ever before. You thought that because Trump was secular, which he is, abortion wouldn't matter, but it's huge. You got a case in front of the Supreme Court now. Texas just passed a law restricting abortion after 15 weeks. Heartbeat rule, I guess. And they're just getting started. This is their passion. So, a Republican Party that is not interested, is interested in religion, interested in, quote, religious liberty, not in liberty, not in freedom, not in capitalism or markets. Low taxes and regulate and control and raise tariffs and manage production and manage the economy all you want. And yet, they might win. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Trump won in 2024 if the economy is doing badly. But not just the Republican nomination, the election. So, we've got a Republican Party that over the last 5-6 years have been drifting away from America. Now, it has been drifting away from America forever, just like the Democratic Party. But that drift on both sides has accelerated over the last 5 years. Most Americans, I still think, are not on the side of America. But they're not drifting to those extremes either. They're somewhere in the middle. I don't think they know what America is. I don't think they would recognize what America is. I'm not even sure they would respond to an America promoting agenda. So a proper political party that stood for the founders, for the Constitution, for the principle of individual rights, even if they didn't fully understand what it meant. I don't think most Americans would stand for that. But they know that something's wrong with the Republicans, and they know something's wrong with the Democrats. They know that those ideas are corrupt, are wrong, are bad. I mean, I don't particularly like Liz Cheney. I never liked her father to the extent that she is a copy of her father. And I don't know she is. I mean, I think she's moderately better than her father. But I never liked Dick Cheney as vice president. Maybe he wasn't that bad of a congressman. He was considered at the time extremely conservative, not a middle-of-the-road Republican at all, but extremely conservative. He was not a neocon. In spite of everybody labeling him a neocon, he was not traditionally a neocon and did not ascribe to many of the neocon ideas. And again, I wrote a book about neoconservatives, critical of them. And yet, all Liz Cheney had to do was say something like, you know, we need to stop with this lie about the election being stolen, and they vote her out of leadership. Basically making it clear, if you don't stand with Trump, not just generally with Trump. Now, Trump is not president anymore. They don't have to do this. If you don't stand with Trump, including all of his irrationalities, including all of his lies, including all the deceptions, including all the conspiracies. If you don't stand with him, then you are not going to be in a leadership position in the Republican Party. now again, they're responding to the activists. And maybe in the Republican Party, the activists are a larger number than the Democratic Party. I have a feeling that is true. They're quieter, they're less engaged, they're less vocal, they don't write as many letters. But I think there are more of them. They're responding to the 53% of Republicans, this is a number I saw today, that still think that Trump won the election. But by doing so, they're giving up on truth. They're giving up on the soul, if the Republican Party had a soul. They're giving up on any principle. They're basically becoming the party of Trump with everything that represents. And when that fails, and it will fail, when that implodes, and it will implode, it won't be free marketers who win. It won't be free marketers who replace these Trump puppets. It'll be the nationalists, the religionists, the people who can capitalize on Trump's irrationality by being even bigger statists than he is. And in that sense, all of it. In that sense, the entire Republican Party will be drift far away from Americanism, what America is, what America was, what America represents. And I think from where a majority of Americans are. And that's happening to both political parties. And the real question is what's going to happen? Intellectually, what's going to happen politically as this? Is there a third party that arises? I don't see it. Are they countervailing forces? They're going to drive the parties back, maybe short run. But as Ayn Rand said, moderation, standing for nothing, being Mitt Romney, is not a position. It's not sustainable. It's not an equilibrium. I'm just a little bit of an altruist versus I'm consistently an altruist. The consistent altruist will move the little bit altruist constantly in his direction. The people who stand for something will always get the others to compromise. It's the middle of the roaders who compromise with the principles, not the principled ones. They stick to it. And you can see that in both political parties. And again, it's not that the Republicans have principles right now. The only principle is Trump. But it's by selling all their principles down the drain. When that fails, the ones with the principles will be the statists, the national conservatives, the central planners, and then the rest of the Republicans will have nothing to offer to stand up against them. There's nobody in the Republican Party right now standing for the principles of the founders, for the principles of the Constitution, for the principles of individualism and individual rights. Nobody. Both parties are adrift away from America, away from the principles, away from what America deserves in terms of a future, which is freedom, capitalism, liberty. All right, let's see. What do Marxist socialists that you have debated typically try to wrap their failed philosophy to make it more palatable? Humanism would be one, worker equity in name of social justice another, any other go-to tactics. I mean, generally their argument is, the better ones, is that socialism is the way for people to actually be free. Socialism is the way for people to actually gain from all the material wonders that are being produced by capitalism. And that indeed socialism will bring about better gains for individuals if it's tried, if it's practiced properly, right? So yeah, humanism is a big one. Worker equity, but they don't believe in workers, right? Because they believe that in a sense that they believe all workers should be owners. The workers should own the means of production. I mean, the woman I debated last week claimed that Marx believed in human happiness and human freedom and individual freedom. And, that once we solve the problem of material production, which capitalism has solved, we all get to do our own thing, complete in freedom. Now, she's evading huge quantities of material, both in Marx, but also in just what a world like that actually looks like. She's evading, for example, that somebody has to produce stuff, and that production primarily happens in the mind. So they're materialists, and they believe in the labor theory of value, and that's an important part of their whole ideology. So it's all about, in their mind, justice, morality, equity. Even, she was all about human flourishing. Workers cannot flourish because they're stuck in a job, and they don't get paid based on their production. They get paid less than what they produce. So they're being exploited. Give them the opportunity to stop being exploited, they will flourish, and they will do phenomenally well. How? Blank. At whose expense? Blank. What happens to the entrepreneur came up with the idea? Blank. They just don't answer. They have no answer. Younger Democratic voters heavily voted for hard-left progressives. They want a Europe welfare state. If AOC can get a Senate seat in New York, it will serve as a launching pad for a presidential run in 8 to 12 years from now. Maybe. But you see, younger voters are always more left than older voters. And then they grow up and they become less left as they grow older. So it's not clear that you can generate a majority just because that generation was very leftist. Doesn't mean that in 10 years they'll still be that leftist. Indeed, history suggests that they won't be. I don't think AOC will be president. I certainly don't think AOC will be president unless she radically modifies her ideas. Now, who knows, 12 years from now, where the country is. But 70% of Americans hate AOC. Despise her ideas. Maybe 80. She is not where the American people are. Now, maybe she's where the American people will be in 12 years, but I'm not convinced of that. I think the American people have other priorities. I've said this many, many times. You're not going to get a majority of Americans to vote for you if you tell them they should feel guilty for the color of their skin. If you tell them they're racist because they're white. So you're just not going to win that way. You can guilt a lot of people support it. You can make a lot of noise. You can cancel some people. You can play your elite games in elite institutions and schools and other places. But the vast majority of Americans are just not going to accept it. Don't you see a civil war between Trumpists and never-Trump GOPers at some point in the next 4 years? Liz Cheney has talked about taking a poison pill and running for president to make sure Trump never gets elected. You mean running for president as an independent? Because if she runs for president in the Republican Party, she would lose big time, right? So, no, I mean, there is a civil war. It's going on right now. But the sad reality is, and to me it's very sad, but it is the sad reality, is that the never-Trumpers are insignificant. They have no base of support. They're often intellectuals. They have maybe a readership. But they're no activists. They're no people who are going to go demonstrate against Trump from the Republican Party. There's just no passion there. And what do they stand for? They're against Trump. Some of them are against Trump because they're pro-free markets and they're, maybe on the individualist side and so on. Some of them hate Trump because they're just centrist and moderates, and they think Trump is too, I don't know, extreme or whatever. Vast majority of Americans are not living in fear of being canceled, fired, demoted, and dead-ended. A small minority of people live in fear of that. There's zero evidence that a vast majority of Americans be there. I mean, somebody working in a factory in Des Moines, Iowa, is not concerned about being canceled. He's concerned about making a living and feeding his family. Never Trumpers are Republicans, yes. I just don't see enough never Trumpers. And I don't see them powerful enough, and I don't see them having a constituency that would challenge the Trumpists for the Republican Party. Right now, the Republican Party is Trump's party. And the only alternative right now to Trump are the Josh Hawleys of the world, who will support Trump for as long as he serves their purposes. I mentioned Nikki Haley was good. I think she has been good, but she's not a never Trumper. And she's not fighting Trump. She's trying to have it both ways. And I think Trump has written her off. And therefore, I don't think she has a future. I said this all along, that unless Trump loses in decisive fashion, people like Liz Cheney will not be the future of the Republican Party. Somebody like DeSantis is playing the Trump card. Does he have policies that are originally his? Does he have policies that move us towards liberty and freedom? Yes, he did well with COVID. But beyond that, does he have any more? Does he have anything that he really, really stands for? That is different than where the Republican Party is today? So I don't know about a civil war. Civil war has to have two committed sides. And in the civil war right now within the Republican Party, only the Trumpists seem committed. The anti-Trumpists, I mean, every single Republican political leader is going down and kissing Donald Trump's ring. So yeah, you would think that Donald Trump being a loser would eradicate his appeal, but by propagating the lie that the election was stolen from him, he is pretending not to be a loser. Now, you know, remember, under Trump, the Republicans lost the House. Under Trump, the Republicans lost the Senate. Under Trump, the Republicans lost the presidency. He is a loser. And even if you assume that it was stolen, why didn't he prevent it from being stolen? He kept saying it was going to be stolen. Why didn't he prevent it? He's a loser by every measure. But it doesn't seem to register among the Republican voters. I mean, a significant number of them say that they will vote for him, that he is their lead candidate for the 2024 election. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe in 6 months, Trump will really have disappeared. Maybe he's going to get into legal problems, which he might, and be irrelevant in the Republican Party because of that. We will see, and that'll be great if that happens. I will celebrate that. That'll be fantastic, and maybe then a Republican Party can rebuild itself and be better. But so far, he is very much in the center of things within the Republican Party.
And to begin with, I wonder if I can ask you to capsulize. I know this is difficult. Can I ask you to capsulize your philosophy? What is Randism?
First of all, I do not call it Randism, and I don't like that name. I call it objectivism.
All right.
Meaning a philosophy based on objective reality. Now, let me explain it as briefly as I can. First, my philosophy is based on the concept that reality exists as an objective absolute. That man's mind, reason, is his means of perceiving it. And that man needs a rational morality. I am primarily the creator of a new code of morality which has so far been believed impossible, namely a morality not based on faith.
On
or
faith.
Not on faith, not on arbitrary whim, not on emotion, not on arbitrary edict, mystical or social, but on reason and morality which can be proved by means of logic, which can be demonstrated to be true and necessary.
All right. All right.
Now, may I define what my morality is?
All right.
Because this is merely an introduction. My morality is based on man's life as a standard of value. And since man's mind is his basic means of survival, I hold that if man wants to live on earth and to live as a human being, he has to hold reason as an absolute, by which I mean that he has to hold reason as his only guide to action, and that he must live by the independent judgment of his own mind, that his highest moral purpose is the achievement of his own happiness, and that he must not force other people nor accept their right to force him, that each man must live as an end in himself and follow his own rational self-interest.
May I?
All right, before we go on, reminder, please like the show. We've got 163 live listeners right now, 30 likes. That should be at least 100. I figure at least 100 of you actually like the show. Maybe there are like 60 of the Matthews out there who hate it. But at least the people who are liking it, you know, I want to see a thumbs up. There you go. Start liking it. I want to see that go to 100. All it takes is a click of a thing, whether you're looking at this. And you know, the likes matter. It's not an issue of my ego. It's an issue of the algorithm. The more you like something, the more the algorithm likes it. So, you know, and if you don't like the show, give it a thumbs down. Let's see your actual views being reflected in the likes. But if you like it, don't just sit there. Help get the show promoted. Of course, you should also share. And you can support the show at JaronBrooksShow.com/support, or on Patreon or Subscribestar or Locals, and show your support for the work, for the value hopefully you're receiving from this. And of course, don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, even if you just come here to troll, or even if you're here like Matthew to defend Marx, then you should subscribe, because that way you'll know when to show up. You'll know what shows are on, when they're on. You'll get notified, right? So, yes, like, share, subscribe, support. Like, share, subscribe, support. There you go. Easy. Do one or all of those, please.